Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 11th, 2024 at approximately 4:23 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the precise philosophies that I guide virtually my entire movement on. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have worked for literally thousands of others with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before I get into things today, I just want to bring a couple things online. First, we have Shadow and Sun in the house with the gold. How you doing, Shadow? Glad you could join us. And this here would be the link to Shadow and Sun's live stream. Right about there. We go copy and we pop that in here. So drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he's got to say, do give him a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the daylights out of the thing. If you'd be so kind as to do so, that'd be appreciated. Now, LA Moon is in with the silver, followed right afterwards by Storm and Shadow in with the bronze. How you doing, guys? Glad you could join us. Hopefully your day has been relatively quiet, or at least relaxing, because the odds of being quiet are not great on your guys' part. Malu, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Now, I do trust things on your end of the world are going well. Now, I got thinking about it. I was originally looking at introducing you to the Spare Knock D. Okay, the Spare Knock Den, rather. Okay, probably don't have enough information on them to turn it into a full focus. So I'm going to reorganize that and pull out a number of different races that are very not very well known, very rare in most circles, but that are all linked in a certain fashion. Not that they're related to each other, but you'll understand. I'm going to take some of the rare races and discuss that. So I figured today we're going to look at a very simple issue that seems to be a great deal of question. Okay, the perception of what is life, and for that matter, what is civilization and or family. Okay, Steve, how you doing? What do we got here? Shadow, LA, Storm. Oh, by the way, Malo, you came in with honorable mention. Then we have Steve Knox in the house. Now, one of the biggest problems that we're facing as a species, if we take off the planet, on the planet, we got a whole lot of problems. Okay. But if we take a look at the whole situation, mankind keeps going, these planets won't support life. Well, it should be qualified that the planets they're finding that they go will not support life should be qualified as they will not support life as humans understand it. Or more to the point, will not support human life. Okay, humans have evolved to the point where they figured out that not all life requires human qualifications for atmosphere. Okay, the sea elephant found that out the hard way. Or more to the point, they found it out the easy way. The humans, not so much. Okay, but life itself really boils down to an organism, in my opinion, and bear in mind, I am not a researcher nor a scientist. Okay, at least not in the traditional sense. Okay, But for life to be able to sustain itself, it's got to be able to reproduce on a consistent, ongoing basis. Okay, anything that does that qualifies, in my eyes, as living. Anytime you have an interaction between more than one group of people, okay, you have a civilization. Now, granted, if you're only dealing with two families, that's a pretty small civilization, but no different than the rest. No different than the bigger ones. Now, the theory is that they only have explored a tiny amount of the undersea on Earth. Never mind the rest of the world. Well, that is bizarre. Now you gotta ask, what pray tell do the Martokians have against chicken? I know what they have against ice cream. They like it. At least the one that showed up here. The neat part about it, and this is what I'm referring to. People look at Mars. The scientists look at Mars and go, let's colonize it because it's uninhabited. If you take a look at the planet, it's about as uninhabited as the Louisiana swamplands. The fact of the matter is, Mars is teeming with life of its own kind, of its own design. Okay, very different from what we have on Earth, but life itself simply has to be able to replicate, and in a continuous, constant fashion, whereby it can continue to evolve. If life cannot reproduce itself, all of a sudden you got a problem. It's not life. Okay. Now the funny part about it is there are many minerals that replenish themselves that humans don't see as being alive. Now we keep running into examples when you look at science fiction or science fantasy writing. You keep seeing examples of what life could look like. The really intriguing part of that is so many times when you read about about a species or about an environment, down the road somewhere, okay, somebody finds it in real life. We're going to find the same thing happen as we reach out into the universe. Now I realize, man, there's this neat little rumor, and I call it a rumor for a lot of reasons, that we have not returned to the moon since since the Apollo 13 was the last I heard that they complained about it. They've been saying we haven't got there. I'll tell you right now, to my way of thinking, and from what I've seen, that's pretty much off kilter. What do we got? I take it at 17 years this thing now, Woo? You know, the reality of it from my standpoint is that life exists out there, but here's the kicker to it. It's not always what mankind sees as life. Okay. But then they're looking, it seems, for human life. And that is very limited. Here we are. Oh, I see. Apollo 17, 1972 was the alleged last mission. Last moon landing. Okay. And I appreciate that. I didn't follow it back then any more than I follow it now. But with that in mind, I don't buy it. Now, do I have any proof of it? Not at all. Not that I can give anybody else. But I do know, and I call it knowing because I've seen it. I just can't prove what I've seen. That travel has been going back and forth. The neat part about it is Martokians have an underground civilization. Okay, and when man gets around to actually starting to set, permanent footing on Mars, let's see here. Let me ask you this, Will. When you say it seems fake, I'm presuming you're referring to the moon landing itself seems fake. I'm presuming that's what you're referring to. Yeah. Okay, let's clarify something. The video, there's no question from my standpoint. Not only did they get to the moon and saw the other side of it and come back safely, albeit a little bit more work than they were planning on. But here's the thing that most people don't realize: the quality of video was not good at that point. And therefore, yes, there is no doubt in my mind that they did set up a studio to refilm the landing. This doesn't mean the landing itself didn't happen. This means they didn't have the video to be able to show it properly on what limited television network they had. Okay, so with that in mind, set up a site and reenact them. Only they forgot to, number one, they didn't make it absolutely clear it was a reenactment. Okay, so yeah, is there a studio that shows it? In my opinion, absolutely. And therefore, that particular video is not fake. It wasn't designed to detract from the reality so much as it was the only option they had. Now, the neat part is you get over to the moon, and here's the one you won't find for a number of years yet, probably a number of decades. But, and people can figure this out 100 years down the road. In all fairness, it'll be closer to 50. And I'm going to do my best to be here when they figure it out. Okay, but on the moon, okay, in today's world, okay, if you go to the moon, they have approximately somewhere between a millimeter and a 32nd of an inch atmosphere around the moon. Now, this opens up all kinds of neat little complications. But we got to realize that just because it's not human civilization, you take a look, and Farley Moat, way back in the 70s, proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt. The wolves have a civilization. They've got family units. They reproduce of their own accord, okay, in a consistent fashion. They educate their kids, and they do, when they're left to their own devices, they can expand their territory. Of course, mankind grew faster, figured out the technology a lot quicker. Net result, whole lot quicker development. Okay, so there's no question mankind is the dominant race here. Mankind is not the dominant race out in the universe. So when we look at life, in simplest terms, it's got to be self-replicating in one fashion or another. Whether this is by, I think it's called mitosis, but I'm wrong there. No, in all fairness, they really aren't. Humans are, the fact of the matter is, Malu, humans aren't a dumb race. They are very self-centered and extremely short-sighted, have a real bad habit of not learning from their own mistakes, as evidenced by what's happening today. Okay, I mean, you think about it. I just finished reading my grandmother's autobiography, and the way that the governments and the general population were treating each other back in the early 1900s. We are talking a century ago. People are still treating each other exactly the same way. Okay, they haven't changed at all. You know, now when we look at Farley Mowat, I was lucky. I met Farley Mowat when I was in kindergarten, and his timber wolf. And I'll tell you, that timber wolf was big to a 5-year-old. Heck, a timber wolf is big to anybody. But the important factor here is humans. Yes, I've got a lot of things I've said that really depicts my, shall we say, disappointment. But they are not stupid by any stretch. Okay, very innovative. Oh, Mullo, I haven't found out because I gotta wait. It'll be a couple months yet before I talk to my brothers, because I won't do it until it's in person. If it is in person, if they say yes, then I will put the autobiography on the map. I will put it on the market. Okay, but she came over from Wales back in 19. She got here in 19, just in time. See, 1901. Yeah, she got over here in in the late 1900s or in the very early 1900s. I'd have to go and get the book again and figure it all out. But she was here for the Great Depression. And the way people treated each other then, screaming at the immigrants, forgetting entirely they were immigrants themselves at one point, telling them to go home, spitting at them, governments and saying, this is a promise we're giving you, and doubling back on it. This isn't a matter of pointing out all the flaws. This is a matter of pointing out the flaw today. We still have the same behaviors 100 years later. Now, here's the really stupid part. In Rome, 2,000 years ago, they pulled exactly the same stunt. Okay, now, we can go all sorts of different directions. But civilization itself is a conglomeration of people. So you have life where it has to be able to reproduce. Now, in a binary genome, okay, you have to have a male and a female to replicate life. No problem there. Once it can reestablish itself, then we're fine. Now, my brother figured it out, and don't take my word for it. Do your own research. I didn't bother going. I knew what my brother's IQ was, and I wasn't about to try and figure it out. But my brother estimated that for a life form to continue to reproduce, it would have to have at a minimum of 200 mated pairs or mateable pair, okay, in order to avoid inbreeding. Without that, it will burn itself out because of genetic collapse, much like the idea of cloning. Now, I get a kick out of it because somebody was telling me the other day that if you're looking at an animal that simply divides to create a duplicate copy, okay, somebody mentioned they will run out of time. That the race will burn itself out. Well, if this were the case, then care to explain how the amoeba and many other microorganisms actually have been pulling that off for billions of years? If they're going to burn out, these guys only have one cell. Okay, so it's not like you burn out. It's not a photocopy. A photocopy essentially says, here's the organism. Now we're going to take a photograph of it and reproduce it. Okay, but it doesn't reproduce the whole thing. Not with a photocopy. When you're looking at and I think the term is mitosis, and since I keep having to go back to that, let's take a look at this. Yep, I got it right. The process by which a cell replicates its chromosomes and then segregates them, producing two identical nuclei in preparation for cell division. Okay, now with that in mind, if mitosis was a way of a system that would fail, the microorganisms that utilize it, and for that matter, the macroorganisms that do, would not have survived. Callie, how are we doing? Glad you could join us. So we have to realize that life itself is simply determined as, and this is not a scientific definition. I have no idea what the definition of what the scientific definition is, but why don't we take a peek at that? We just go define life. Not define life science. I said define life. The condition that distinguishes, and this is coming off dictionary.com, by the way. The condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. Now, with that in mind, there's a clinical definition for it. I look at it going very simple. If it is replicating and continuing to evolve, okay, if that is the case and you're dealing with life, it does not necessarily follow that it is life as humans see it. Okay, it's certainly not human life. But then let's face it, you take an eagle and throw an eagle off a cliff, that thing will fly away and come back and beat the heck out of you. Okay, you throw a human off the cliff, the odds are he'll bounce nicely, but I'm betting he ain't gonna fly. Okay, so we have a lot of different races going on. A lot of different forms of life. And not all of it is visible. Okay, not all of it will make sense to humans. For instance, there are things such as living crystals. And I know that sounds weird to a lot of people. Yeah, very true, LA. You throw him off the gun, LA just goes, no, but if he survives, he's likely to be coming for you. It's a good bet. It really is a good bet that that's going to happen. Now, it depends. Maybe he just needed a wake-up call. I got to stop drinking. And somebody goes, well, I'll stop you from drinking, pitch you off the cliff. Gets the message, quits drinking, no more problem. I'm thinking that's a bit of an extreme road. But when we look at civilized at life, there's where we have to start. Now, family, of course, and this is what this whole planet was designed for, was for spirits to take on a physical form and experience life in a corporeal body with limited senses. Now, to enhance that, we take the concept of family. Family being designated as, from human standpoints, being designated as two people living under one roof. Okay, now whether they are, what gender they are, what species they are, was never determined. Okay, it was never designated. It was simply two people living under one roof and raising and caring for as many other people as they between them chose to have. This could be just themselves, one child, multiple children, lots of animals being brought in, lots of plants being brought in. Okay, or a whole pile of homeless people. Doesn't matter. The family is that unit, but you got to remember, family is not always bloodline indicative. Okay, Family is the people that you choose to bring into your life. Bloodline is what you chose. And the bloodline thing is chosen on a spiritual standpoint, way before you're ever born. Okay, so your bloodline, yes, the saying blood is thicker than water is absolutely true. And don't take my word for it, check it. Okay, hopefully you'll check it in a way that is actually functional. Okay, like a cup of water is great, but a cup of blood is going to cause somebody a whole lot of problems. But if you look at the viscosity of water and blood, blood is absolutely thicker than water. But bloodline does not guarantee family. Okay, it really doesn't. Where is my fan? There it is. Wanted my fan on. Got a window up over here that's open, and my fan over here to get a little bit of a draft. But the nice part about it, when we get family, this is the people that you choose to have around. And this is quite seriously to me, this stream has provided me with a very with a virtual family. Okay. There we go. Just had to make sure and put it back. But with this in mind, if we are going to continue to evolve, if we're going to turn the tide of what's going on, we have to start looking at the past and going, okay, that didn't work all that well. Take a look at the world around you. Okay, now I've seen societies, because my memories go back a lot further than most. Okay, I talked a while ago about the Sarkon the Sarkon race. They were the ones that, when they expanded their civilization too fast, they left behind the outreach races of Tormenon, Strazazian, and Kamalian. Okay, because they expanded too fast. Now, mankind right now is trying to expand too fast for its own good. And the reason I say that is because humans have not even figured out how to get along in their own household, never mind their own neighborhood. Now, some households work very well, some neighborhoods work very well, but I'm talking on a societal level. Okay, we talk about this idea of a one world government. What people don't realize is we're not talking about a dictatorship. We are talking about several communities the world around working together to create a better world. Okay, couple of things are being done absolutely backwards. And I have decided I'm actually in the middle of writing a few articles that'll be coming out in Positive Perspectives in the magazine. Okay, I'm writing a series of articles to deal with the pitfalls that we are having in the parental in the realm of the parental school, the pedagogical, the priesthood, and the political. I will be covering my perspective on them in Positive Perspectives, but do understand something very important. As I'm writing these, I'm not just going to be going, here's the problem. Look at all the things that are going wrong. I am absolutely endeavoring to also provide possible options for people to turn it around. Okay, many people do not see the outcome of what they're up to, and society has taught people to totally ignore it. Where do we go here? Malu goes, Eddie, for a great week. As close to it as I get. I've got a lot designed for this week, and not the least of which is going to require a couple of conversations. Fortunately, I can now take a messenger call from people, so I'm not stuck with just Skype. Okay, but thanks to Storm, we managed to get my messenger working properly. I can now handle an incoming call. For the longest time, I couldn't hear anything. Now, Malu's going, it takes time to make people trust their neighbor. And in these times, I sense people are getting closer, in my town at least. People talk more with each other than they did 2 years ago. This is fantastic news, Malu. And you're absolutely right, by the way. It takes time to learn to trust your neighbor. Problem is, it even takes time to learn to trust yourself. Okay. Now, I know things are changing for me because I'm reaching out more. I'm getting out in, what would you like? Yeah, I realize that, but what am I supposed to do with that one? I'm reaching out more and more, okay, to the populace around me. And I've certainly decided that coming out of the shadows is necessary. What I am seeing, however, is that people are starting to, especially when we start talking about looking at their neighbor, I'm even finding more people reaching out and going, how do I accomplish this? How do I get past this fear that I'm hanging on to that I know is from the past? It will take time, but it also takes absolute concrete guidance. This is why in this room, in this stream, on positive perceptions, I decided to go, okay, here's the boundaries I'm working with. These are the guidelines. And as long as those stay put, everything will continue to grow. Now, we are currently sitting at 603, which, again, we're getting closer to where I stop thinking in terms of, oh, it's all of a sudden going to drop off. But every race that I'm dealing with, okay, and when I talk about every race, I'm not just referring to human. All races I run into have exactly the same problem. All to varying degrees, don't get us wrong. Okay, the question is, are you content? Now, obviously, and I gotta presume, Malu, that you're a lot more content with your neighbor or with your community, starting to talk to each other more. This has got to be a weight off your shoulders in that end. Okay, I know it'll be a whole lot better as that happens. Yes, there is room for misunderstanding, but the reality is misunderstanding will happen even more so with no functional communication. And just a real quick update on personal note there, LA and Storm. What we ended up doing was we reinstalled Skyrim, just completely reinstalled it, and we're going to see what happens. Now, it may have been just a case that we had it running for so many years, and it buckled. It is possible. Lord knows I ran for years before my leg buckled. But I am getting, we are getting things turned around. And the nice part about it, I will absolutely do so, LA. I will, I'm going to take a little bit of credit, so to speak. No, I'm not. But the timing does seem kind of intriguing. We started doing this stream. We're now into 24, so 3 years ago now. As a matter of fact, I missed it all together, but March 6th of 2021 was the first podcast I did. Okay, so we are 3 years down the road where we were working with this sort of thing. And, if 2 years ago, if that's when your community started changing, let's face it, I don't think I was reaching that far around the world at that point. But it is intriguing that the world started to change 2 years ago, and roughly 2 years ago was when I started to go absolutely live. But that was because, and I mean, it sounds like a weird reason, but my ability to pre-record collapsed, and the only option was to go live. But now we've got the world communicating a little more. I just find it to be a little bit, shall we say, pleasantly coincidental. Mother's going, yes, kids play together. No kids here in the village for years. And the adults drink beer and coffee together. It takes time. Also because a lot of the old ones of the old have died and new life arrives. Absolutely. And this is the one thing I agree with where it comes to the religious circles. When they sit there going, you're going to die. They're absolutely right. You're going to die. I've just done it more often than most. Okay. But it is nice to see it starting to shift, because the trick here is not what we can get from the world. The whole trick to life is leaving the world in better shape when you depart than it was in when you got here. This is the goal that we all should have, in my opinion. Okay, the Egyptian pharaohs thought that they needed all the stuff because they were taking it with them into the afterlife. Well, if you'll notice, nobody's living in the pyramids, but there's a lot of you can't take it with you. But what you can do is leave a lasting impression here. What are you? Yeah, well, that's going to have to wait. They can leave a message if I even bother with them. The sad part is, yes, I've told people, leave a message. The reality is, if I don't know what the phone call coming in is, the odds are I'm not picking up anyway. I get way too many scam artists. Oh, your SIN number has been suspended. Your SIN number is like your social security number. The government just doesn't suspend it. Because let's face it, they use it to get their tax from you. Okay, but I am going to go into a lot more detail in the coming months in the newsletter. And if you want the free newsletter, okay, which is where I'll do a lot of the extra stuff. Okay, you hit that and you go to the top of the chat room there, and it shows you buy me a coffee. You can order that newsletter for free, as well as any of the books I end up discussing. Okay, and now the books are not free. The newsletter, Positive Perspectives, and this stream, Positive Perceptions, are absolutely going to stay free. And that's why I say, if you've got a question, I don't care what the topic is. If you've got a question, I will give you an honest answer. Now, that honest answer may be, I have no idea what you're doing. I have no idea what you're referring to, so here's where you go. Ken, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Hopefully things are finally starting to move forward for you. I get a kick out of a lot of it because I watch people tell me this isn't going well, or they get stuck on something that is absolutely, they look at an option and they go, this is all bad. Now, I don't go to, I tell people this regularly. Okay, I believe wholeheartedly in God. I believe wholeheartedly in Jesus Christ. I don't set foot inside a church, a temple, a synagogue, a coven. I don't go there at all. Okay, and there's a lot of reasons for it. But I have sent literally countless thousands of people back to them because these particular institutions do provide a sense of family, a sense of support for many people. Now, I admit there are some hiccups, and I'll get to those later. But even in the other races, in the non-human races I've looked at, okay, and the ones I've discussed, even in those races, we have absolutely, looked at the family units, at the way their interactions come. And they're a lot more volatile, a lot less forgiving than what humans are. You know, humans about holding a grudge. Trust me on this, from what I've seen, they're not good at it. Okay. Now, there are many things that are going on, and one of the big issues that I'm actually gearing up to set in motion. In all likelihood, I'll do it tonight. But the books that I've been writing, these are things I do have to start promoting a lot more effectively. I still get emails and messages from people that go, "Oh, your site's great," and all these great big organizations, they go, "Oh, your site's great, but it's not tracking well." And I'm thinking, like, okay, great, but when you compare that to a family, I turn around and I talk to a so-called major organization. They go, "Here's what you need to do." Conversely, I have a problem with a computer, and I talk to a couple of very specific people, and they go, "Oh, here's what the problem is. Let's make this change to your system and get it working." Now, with that in mind, it's absolutely bizarre the way things are happening. The way people are treating each other. Oh, speaking of which, it's up here because I was working on it today. Now, we're at 952, 5261. We're now up to 61 subscriptions. We got 61 subscriptions here, 603 on Positive Perceptions. Okay, so between them, and these double up a lot. Some people are in this database that are not actually subscribed. Okay, but then not everybody will listen to YouTube. Okay, I don't worry about it. But when we look at family, take a look at the people you're drawing to you. Okay, look at the people you're spending your time with. Are they helping you feel better about you, about your efforts to progress, about the successes that you're feeling you're making, or are they kicking you in the shins or other places and making you feel like you're doing nothing? I'll tell you, I see things like, for instance, I'm not going to go into what, okay, but I've watched many of you in the chat room here. I've watched many of you struggle really hard, really push to make things happen, to get your life to turn. And I have heard wonderful tales of things turning around. Where you have this, you call it a little success. Oh, I made an extra sale. Okay. Only one sale. I'm telling you, by only one step to start with. That's all it is. Okay. A person learns to handle finance by handling their pennies before they figure out what a dollar ever is. Okay. This is the key. Now, you got to remember, it does not take one person to raise a child. It takes an entire community. Because the one person, okay, certainly the child will learn what they can't do with that one person. But they don't learn to respect other people's property unless they're shown how. And as you can see, I forgot to close that one down again. But civilization boils down to a bunch of people. We are talking family unit, or we are talking, whether you're talking a family unit or you're talking a whole pile of people. There we are. Now you can see me. Well, sort of. Hey, look, I've got a halo. No, I've got a light behind me. That being said, civilization boils down to a bunch of people living under the same guidelines, and this is where governmental guidelines are kind of required. because somebody's got to lay down some guidelines, and we'll get to those on another day, or more likely in an article I'm in the middle of writing. Okay, let me ask you this though. In your house, even if you're living on your own, do you not have rules that you desire people in your own home to follow? Okay, is this not a question? Yeah, absolutely, Malu. I remember that all too well. I was lucky in my home. My parents raised us with a real simple philosophy. You come into the house, first and foremost, if there's money sitting on the counter and you didn't put it there, it stays there. Okay. And, we learned you never touched it. But much like you, Malu, it was simple. You're going into their house, it's their rules. This also applies. I hate to ask, Eternity. By the way, welcome aboard, Eternity. I gotta ask. I know you've got rules for your cat, but I'm betting that the cat doesn't follow the rules. I've met very few cats that actually pay attention to the rules. But no, we learned very quickly. And that's the whole thing, LA. Those 3 laws. If you desire somebody to follow your rules, it is only right that you follow their rules. Because then if you go to their house and you're following their rules, they're far more inclined to follow yours. You must follow the laws of the land in which you are. This, by the way, applies even in other societies. But you still have to take into consideration the limits. Okay, there are things that your rule may be that way. Okay, now this is a blatantly obvious rule. Okay, but you take, if your rule in your house, there are communities there are families like this. The rule in this house is you take your shoes off. Okay, however, for some reason, this rule tends to get bypassed in the event somebody shows up without arms or legs. They tend to ignore the rule of you got to take your shoes off. Okay, there are reasons for laws to go into place. Every civilization I've run into have certain rules, most of which, what they do is they go, okay, this rule applies to the household, but specifically to our race in good shape. Like I said, physical impediments will interfere with certain rules. But, for instance, you go to a foreign country, and some of the food you just add. I know as a Westerner, there's some foods that people eat over in the Middle East. I got nothing against them eating it. Okay, I really don't. Yeah, yeah. LA's going, of course, and they're mostly based on be true to yourself, do unto others the way you'd be done by, and don't do crap you don't want in your own lap. Absolutely. This is why I say whatever laws you're following, I follow 3. Okay, whatever laws you're following, whether they are religious, societal, parental, pedagogical, doesn't matter. Okay, check them out and compare them to those 3. And I do believe you'll find that they all fit together. They all fit inside it. Even in other races, I found the same thing. Okay, that they still follow that their laws all fall inside those 3. Now, the neat part about it, yeah, well, that one I kind of failed on there, LA. To be honest, when I've got company over, I will make food for me and won't bother making food for them. But you got to remember 2 major factors. I do agree with you. If you're going, under normal circumstances, if you're going to make something neat, you make it for the people you're expecting, not necessarily drop-ins. Okay, but in my case, I still eat one meal a day. I start in the morning, I finish at night. Okay, a buddy of mine comes over. He physically cannot eat until 5 o'clock at night. Okay, and that's assuming that he gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, I shouldn't say that. If he actually gets up at 6, he's got to be active for 4 hours before he can put anything in his stomach and have it stay there. You know, as he put it to me, if he ate as much as I do, he'd be 800 pounds. If I ate as much as he does, I'd be dead in a desiccated Hulk. You know, a desiccated husk. You know, but the reality of it is, always be courteous. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. You know, in some of the races I've dealt with, they turn around and go, "We like our food fresh. We like to kill our own food." Well, I certainly don't. You know, I certainly do not enjoy killing my own food. Although I have been classified as a serial killer a number of times. Of course, in all fairness, I get up in the morning and I have cereal. But all civilizations follow the same set of laws. Okay, they got different words for it. They've got different traditions, different celebrations, and what have you. But they all follow the same thing. They have a civilization where the whole civilization is set to run on a certain set of rules. But here's the thing. With civilization, if the laws that are being made, regardless of their position, even in the monarchies, when the kings were in place, if the kings weren't following what they dictated that the peasants should be following, you can bet they had problems. Okay, and this is why we're going down this road right now, is we're looking at striving to get the idea out that if you desire your world to change, okay, you're the one that's going to have to get up and make it happen. You know, it's just one of those things that has to be dealt with. You know, the other thing we got to look at here is when we look at a family, remember, the family is the people you choose to be around. There are times when bloodline family, it doesn't make sense to stick around because all they are doing, or the primary thing they're doing that's getting across, is degrading the individuals or demeaning them or trying to control them and force them into a little box that doesn't work well. Okay, if you're in a situation that is not leaving you feel energized, is not leaving you feel better, then you might want to consider what you're up against. Yeah, well, you know, when I was growing up, my mom and dad had a beautiful setup. Dad ran the outside of the house, mom ran the inside. But they had it down to a fine art. And bear in mind, I never heard them argue, period. Ever. Okay. But if we as kids would go to mom, we'd ask her a question, can I do this? Right. And if it was inside, mom would give us an answer. If we didn't like the answer, we went to dad, just like most kids. You know, hey, dad, can I do this? Dad, instead of dad going yes or no, he'd go, well, did you talk to your mom? Well, yeah. Well, what did your mom say? Well, mom said we couldn't do it. Then what are you talking to me for? Okay, you're not doing it. Mom did the same thing with dad regarding the outside stuff. This is all we figured out, that when a boundary was laid, that's where it was put. And bear in mind, especially in my family's case, mom and dad, they had, well, they produced 5 boys. Okay, adopted a girl and foster parented 2 other girls, plus were block parents. Okay. And they treated all of the kids the exact same way. There were times it was a little entertaining, like sitting down to dinner disappeared. And who are you two? And so then we'd have to figure out who was where, right? But the thing you got to remember is boundaries for your own life are imperative. Okay. And this is why I say, if you haven't done so already, and I tell people this from every walk of life, okay, whether you're a pauper on the street or you're a multi-billionaire or you're the leader of a country, it doesn't matter to me. You're still the same way. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I agree with you there, LA. Take the person that is best suited to the confrontation to draw as little conflict as possible. Give them the driver's seat. Now, there are species I know of that is literally how they determine who their leader is. Okay, we've got a decision to make on agriculture. He's the guy that knows the agriculture the best. He's the one that gets to make the important decisions. Okay, it's a military problem. Oh, that's that person over there. So with that person over there, we'll talk to them because they understand defensive structures. But here's what most people don't seem to realize. When I'm talking about the human genome. Okay, with humans, men are physically, on the whole, genetically stronger. Okay, now this does not mean they've got a higher pain threshold. In all fairness, they really don't on the whole. Okay, but men were designed to be able to stand up in a knockdown fight to protect their home. They are the ones that were the hunters. They were the ones that went out and dealt with the dangerous situations. The women, okay, the women were the ones that stayed home, figured out shelter, figured out medicine, figured out recovery rate and how to cook and what have you. Okay, I mean, it sounds really bad, but you get the male going, big problem, big stick. If problem breaks, then if problem breaks, problem solved. If stick breaks, get bigger stick. Women, on the whole, think more intricately. How do we get these blocks to stand together so that we can actually live inside them? And how do we bring the temperature up? Okay, men were not and still are not the ones that are the problem solvers at home on the whole. Now, I understand in your household, LA, there's a lot of variation, but you're not exactly what we consider run of the mill. Okay. And in the case of people that are living that are single or raising kids on their own, okay, first thing you got to remember, you got to make rules that work in your house. Societies that are built that you're told you have to do it this way. That only works if everybody, the leaders included, are following suit. That's just the reality behind it. One thing that we got to remember is that when we're looking at life, when we're looking at life, you got to realize that life is literally not always something that looks like life to humans. Okay. I look at water and I see an entire species. Okay. Not just the water, but in amongst the water. If you ever watched the movie Abyss, you'll see some of the underwater species that people haven't even touched. Okay. And, the people haven't even recognized because they aren't standard life. Okay. They do not look human. They don't react like humans. Therefore, they can't be life. Bad news. They really can be. Okay. So now, do understand something very important in this case. When I'm talking about this being the way life looks, this is quite literally, I don't do any research on it. This is just what I've come to understand over literally centuries of life. And yes, as you guys well know, I remember past lives quite readily. I'm in the middle of documenting a number of them. Absolutely, Malu. The funny thing there is when we talk about the way that the couples complement and interact with each other, you'll find the same thing, not only with couples. You take a look at a family, take a look at a community, take a look at a business. Newcomers are treated with special gloves. You've heard the idea. Get out the good dishes for the company. I'm a firm believer. To heck with that, I'm getting out the good dishes for me. Okay, but the thing you got to remember is when a relationship gets off the ground, you absolutely have to deal with one little detail and one little thing. Okay, and that is you got together because of the draw. We're told as we get older, number one, you're going to fall apart. Your body, you're going to get old. Your teeth are going to fail. Your eyesight's going to fail. You're going to lose mobility. You're going to lose drive. Okay. Now, I'm not going into any great detail on the specifics, but I had a client years ago. Okay. Now we're all told as you get older, your intimate drive collapses. I'm telling you, I had a client. He phoned me up. He was in an absolute state. His wife. Now they had a perfectly functional marriage. His wife, he accused of cheating on him. Okay, and they went through the marriage counseling before they ever got to me because she turned out pregnant, and he was absolutely certain that she had cheated on him. She swore she didn't. Okay, now you'll understand the problem in just a minute. But he accused her, demanded a paternity test. Turned out he was the father. But here's the kicker. She was 26. Okay. She was 26 years old. Okay. When he met her. They got together. Actually, I think she was probably 25 when they met. Because they were together. They were married when she was 26. And he, at the time, was 103. Okay, so he phoned me at 104 because she came up pregnant. Okay, now at 104 years old, for some weird reason, he was a stay-at-home husband. She was working. Can't imagine why he wasn't out working, but clearly, if they produced a naturally conceived child, clearly they were active. Okay. And, so he phones me up, tells me he's gone through it all. And I says, why are you on the phone to me? He goes, well, he says, back in World War One, I was diagnosed absolutely 100% sterile. He says, and being a young airman, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of playtime over the years. He says, never once did I ever get a scare. Not once. He says, she turns out pregnant. And what am I to think? I said, okay, so I understand how you came to the conclusion, but why are you on the phone to me? He goes, I'm a father. I never even considered being a father. What am I supposed to do? And so we went through the whole 9 yards. He was on the phone with me a number of weeks while I helped him understand what being a father was, which is really funny when you start thinking that child, his uncles, if they were still alive, I told the guy, I said, one thing I do have to warn you, the odds of you making it to your son's graduation are not good. You know, it's just not likely you'll get to your son's graduation. You know, and this is something that as you get older, you do have to consider. Not whether or not you can have a child, not whether or not you can still play, play in an intimate sense. Okay. I knew another woman that was 66 and still having her regular cycle. Of course, my first question was, who did she take off? You know, but as you get older, it doesn't take a lot any more effort to stay interested in what your other half is doing, in what your children are doing. It doesn't take any more effort than it does when they first show up. It takes effort to forget them. Okay. And when you're looking at business, the same thing applies. New customers, people constantly are looking at newcomers and going, oh, let's make a really good impression on the customer. The first time they come through the door, do this. But you'll find that the waiters and the waitresses and the cooks start to lose their interest, and they stop treating the standing customers in a functional fashion. Net result, their business tapers off. Can't imagine why. Okay. Civilization is the same way. Okay. We take a look at civilization. You lay down rules and go, we'll pitch in and make this happen. Somebody new moves into the neighborhood. Oh, introduce yourself to the new neighbor. Okay. And then they totally ignore them for the rest of the time they're there. Now, granted, I don't go and knock on my neighbor's doors and develop a big social interaction with them. Of course, in all fairness, I don't try to knock on my kids' doors and have a full interaction with them. But I never really did. Okay, aside from when they were tiny. Nathan, how we doing? Yeah, I made it. I'm late, but I'm here. There are times when telling somebody you're late is not necessarily a good idea. But we are glad you managed to get here. And where is Nathan? This is the link to Nathan's live stream. So absolutely drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, absolutely give him a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of it. This world is changing, as Malu was kind enough to point out. People are starting to communicate. Okay, this is long overdue. Now, I got an email just today. Apparently, the second coming is coming again. Only now it's no longer a person. Now it's AI is the second coming. I'm not sure how that translated, but I ignored it because I'm figuring not all that interested. And there's a lot of real twisted ways that comment can go. But when we look at civilization, we have to. Well, you do remember, Malu, that he sat in the dirt a lot. The reality of it is we don't go down that road at all, though. Okay. No religion, no spiritual path is better than any other one. And none of them tell you what really happened. Because I'll tell you, the information we've got now has been corrupted. Okay. The reality of it is there are problems all over the world. Malu, I'm going to warn you only once. I'm not going down that road. There are a lot of places there are a lot of things going wrong in this world. And there's a lot of streams that we can look at, a lot of different news reports. There's a lot of different outlets that will quite readily tell you all the evil things people are doing to each other, all the creepy things. Okay. there's a lot of different places to get that kind of outlook. And I can point you to a whole pile of places where you can get really depressed about life and really disappointed in life itself. Okay. Now, let me ask you this, because I'm only touching on this one thing. Okay. Everybody says this person did that wrong. Find one thing they did right. Just one. I had this conversation with somebody the other day about another individual. Only in their case, it was what they did in a company. Okay, everybody was saying what they were doing wrong. I said, okay, what did they do right? Okay, this is the important factor. Because if we look at what people are doing right, there's no question. Like, in all fairness, I talk a really good game about the positive side of things. You don't want to know what goes through my head where it comes to the negative side. That's why I get a kick out of the coincidence of it. Okay, I called the magazine Positive Perspectives because that's the way I was looking at it. Okay. And in all fairness, it was literally L.A. Moon that came up with the idea of calling this Positive Perceptions. Okay. But if you actually talk to me about the way I really see the world from my end personally, I'll tell you, positive is not necessarily the word I'd be using. But I will tell you, I do have an outlet for it. Okay. This little book here. Okay. The main protagonist, Jeremiah Wolfstrand, okay, is a pacifist. He will quite readily talk his way out of anything he can get away with. But you really don't want to back him into a corner. Whoa, how you doing? And by the way, Malu, apology accepted. Jeremiah is a pacifist. Okay. He is the one that if you back him into a corner, you don't want to see the outcome. Okay, because in this particular little story, it's post-apocalyptic. The first chapter talks about a fight to a degree. Okay, the second chapter ends up in a very detailed, very graphic combat. Okay, 10-1 odds. 7 dead, 2 badly wounded, 1 gets away unscathed. That's against Jeremiah, the pacifist of the party. Okay, so do I have violent thoughts? Absolutely. Do I look at the world and go, there are major problems? Absolutely. But I'm choosing to look at the world and go, okay, where are the benefits? We've gone from a handful of people to over 8 billion for the second time in recorded history. Well, yeah, we'll go with the Akashic records being the record keepers. Okay, discussed. They are maintained by the Yldrbacs because the Yldrbacs are one race one species, one race that actually came across from the last rendition. Okay, but in all of recorded history, mankind has reached this point. These numbers of people. Okay, quite frankly, to a staggering level, they had to do something right. Okay, people are absolutely, people have a lot going for them. Problem is, right from the get-go, in other words, right from birth, all the way through your senior years, we are told, you can't do that. The world's going, your world is going to collapse. As you get older, you're going to become blinder. I wear glasses, certainly, but I will tell you, mine didn't collapse because of genetics. Mine collapsed because I took a trailer hitch to my right eye. And that really screws up your ability to see. Okay, now, with that in mind, they are healing. I got off the medication. I took myself off medication. Now, you'll remember, I have told you guys consistently, do not pull yourself off medication without a doctor backing it, because they'll be able to guide you. In my case, I don't necessarily follow the rules all the time. Where it comes to doctors, absolutely I don't. But then you got to remember, how many of you have been clinically declared dead and shipped to the morgue? I'm not happy with their diagnostic procedures. Okay, I was told that I would never walk without a cane. Granted, I am still using one because the dang thing keeps shutting down. But I spend a lot of my time in the house without using one. Meaning, I can walk short distances. Not long ones, but I can walk short ones. Okay, so you have to, well, you don't have to. You can look at the world any way you'd like. You can continue looking at everything people are doing wrong. Go dig up people's past. I'll tell you, looking into my past, I'm not perfect. Okay, you take a look at the internet, and so many people are posting, and I don't know how society evolves this way. Okay, so many people post, oh, here's videos of absolute wardrobe failures these people don't want you seeing. So here they are. When you consider reading those or looking at them, ask yourself, what would you think if it was your picture up there? Or that article was about you? Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Okay. Unlike in the gaming vernacular, quite often when we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, do unto others as you think they're going to do unto you, but do it first and then split. This is great for the imagination. It's absolutely civilization. Unless you're planning on destroying civilization all over again, at which point it's being played out perfectly. Now, civilization, whether we are talking human or an off-world, an ancient race, whether we're talking bipedal, tripedal, multipedal, it don't matter. Civilization still operates the same way. The rules have to be followed by everybody, including the rule makers, or your society will fracture. Your culture will develop a second culture. Hence why we have the market and the black market. But in the black market, if the rules do not apply to everybody there equally, it too will fracture. Net result, let's take that one neat little idea of a unified world. Okay, if this world were unified, would we have something like 147 different countries? Realistically, does it make any sense? If we are talking about everybody being human, okay, if we're talking about everybody being human, we would run into some really neat ideas if everybody actually treated each other following karmic law. Now, like I said, and it really is an issue for me of it doesn't matter to me where somebody sits in my life. Okay, I treat them exactly the same way with the same set of boundaries. Okay, in case you noticed, I'm not known for being subtle. Okay, years ago, I threw a good friend of mine out of the house. He was a good friend. We was around all the time. I threw him out because he broke my rules. Now, I know that sounds like I'm being an absolutely aggressive dictator, but it boiled down to this. I set the rules up for everybody, myself included. Okay. I follow the same rules. If I go to somebody else's house, yes, I will absolutely, if something hits the table that I know I'm not going to be able to eat, I will certainly speak up. For instance, and this is why I tell people if I'm going over to that place, they go, what would you like for dinner? I'm like, it's not what I'd like. I'll eat just about anything. But too spicy, I cannot stomach. And texture sometimes is an issue. Somebody puts grits on my plate when I go visit somebody. I'll tell you right now, I ain't eating them. Or they put yogurt in a bowl and they go, here, this is dessert. I'll look at it and go, well, thanks very much, but I'm not eating it. You know, it's a question of I do not deal with certain things. And it is worse to go, oh, I'll suffer through it and then try and deal with it. You know, so I just figure I'll just be straightforward and let people know. But what was it? I think 3 weeks, maybe a month back, we had such a bad run with people doing stupid things in this stream that I got off the stream early and I ended up having a heart attack that night. Real fun job. This is why I don't why I don't have the toleration for it anymore. This is also why I've got people moved into the moderator position. And rest assured, I have the same issue. And I don't worry about it. It's just the way it is. If in my world, because in this stream, this is where I'm the only one that's actually got leeway. In a sense. But even if a moderator does something I consider complicated, I'll pull a plug on it. Or I'll get somebody else to if I can't figure out how. You know, it's, a moderator position does not put people in a, oh, you've got a better position in society. Yes, you do, but you still got the same rules. In society, when we take a look at somebody that lays out the laws and says, here's the laws, what you have to do. If they are not following the same laws, then the people that are being forced to follow the laws are going to revolt. They're going to have a problem with it. And the society will buckle. We know this is in the case because it happened in Egypt, it happened in Rome, okay? It's happening today, okay? 100 years ago, there were problems that are still being replicated the same way. Now, I'll tell you, that creates an interesting problem. But it's a problem that we, as a community, can correct. The other thing I found is that so many wealthy people, and bear in mind, we consider wealth nowadays, most people seem to consider wealth as having a lot of material things. Some societies figure if you've got 15 slaves and the guy next only has one, you're a more wealthier person than the one that's only got one. Okay. I look at it going, the one that's only got one is wealthier because they do more for themselves. Steve, essentially you're correct. Okay. Those that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Okay. But the problem is those that dwell on history are just as likely to repeat it. Now, history will only repeat itself if people decide and choose to continue treating each other the same way that the past history did. Okay, if people continue, for instance, I am striving to become a multimillionaire only because I want a lot of material to help the world. I don't require more than really, I can live comfortably high on the hog at $2,500 a month. Okay, I can live very comfortably. I don't require an income of $1 million. Okay, but with that kind of money, I can treat people differently in the way that I see is viable. Okay, and if people are looking at history going, it's collapsed, it's in trouble, and you keep doing the same thing you've been doing, you're going to get the same outcome. It's just that simple. It's like I was actually talking to my son today, and we got into a discussion about it. And he goes, yeah, he says, most people, if they're mentally a little restricted, they'll put their hand on the burner, on a red hot burner, and go, ow, ow, and it'll clue in, and they'll stop touching the burner. Even mentally restricted people. And then you get the people that figure, oh, it'll never happen to me. Put the hand on the burner multiple times and can't figure out why their hand burns. Okay, but the other thing is this idea that history will always repeat itself. If that is the case, and let's just put this in real simple black and white terms, I'm betting, Steve, because we're going to blow that thought right out of the water. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how old you are, so we'll just say 40 years ago and hope you're older. But when you were a child, I'm betting that you probably filled your drawers with your own, with your own waste product when you were a child regularly. And every time you did that it had the same outcome. But eventually you figured out via training, probably by your parents, that doing that didn't work right. So they taught you to look at the world a different way. They taught you a different way to deal with it. And with a little bit of luck, you're not still filling your drawers. If you're not, history does not always repeat itself. Okay, but the point you're making is actually very accurate. Society on the whole repeats itself consistently because people, they keep talking about desiring change, but not desiring to change. Okay, and that's the real kicker for this. When we look at civilization, for civilization to evolve, we have, you go back again. Let's go back to slavery. That was a brilliant idea. Okay, slavery has been done for centuries in various different civilizations, but they eventually got to the point, never mind the reasoning behind ending it, they finally got to the point that that slavery is no longer acceptable unless we talk about wage slave, another form of slavery in all fairness. But you still have, society has evolved. Mankind is learning, albeit slow as molasses in January. Absolutely, LA. LA goes, I think the people want their neighbors to change. Not productive at all. The funny thing is, you desire your neighbor to change, and you're absolutely right, LA. You desire your neighbor to change. Get to know who the neighbor is. You reach out and start the change process. Okay, literally the saying is be the change you desire to see. This applies to your neighbors, your coworkers, your politicians, your religious leaders. It applies to all of them. But I will tell you this. I don't care how nice you are. A wolverine, as in a funny little 3 foot furry little animal with a temper. Okay. And they've got a temper. It's always bad. Actually, not really. They are one of the most loving critters you'll ever run into. This is why that change has to start here. Okay, well, technically, it starts in the etheric plane, comes down, gets to the head and the heart. But the trick is that when your head and your heart agree, essentially it boils down to when your mind can conceive it and your heart can believe it, you can achieve it. Change is the one constant in the universe. Unfortunately, many corporeal people, humans are not the only ones that do this. If they were the only ones that do it, we wouldn't have a civil war in between the Teclax. We wouldn't have the Tormenon still doing the same thing that they do. There wouldn't be a war between the Strazazian and the Teclax. They just wouldn't exist. Okay, because some people don't change. Yeah, isn't that the truth? And this is why I say, this is another indication that mankind society is finally evolving. You want full disclosure? You got it right there, Malu. Your neighbors believe in UFOs. You guys talk. Years ago, you said UFO. Everybody started looking to lock you up. I will tell you, centuries back, I was a warlock. Many of the people I know today, I burned at the stake 400 years ago. Not exactly a great icebreaker for making new friends, but hey, didn't light them on fire this time. Yeah, if they came to you, that definitely says a lot there, Malu. You know, if they're coming to you, not only are they changing, okay, you know, if they're changing to the point they'll come and approach you, it also shows that you're changing, as in that self-defensive wall is coming down enough that they feel safe coming to talk to you. You should give yourself a pat on the back for that one. Okay, I still see so many people that the moment you mention that somebody says, "Oh, I think I may have been abducted," so many people, even the ones working in the field, sit there going, "Oh no, you're just making that up so you can get a name for yourself." I'm like, I've been called a lot of different things in my life, but I'm not known for being subtle, and my tolerance for stupidity has down. Matter of fact, I wonder if I've got it. Wonder if I'm even over here. Not that one. Here we are. See, this is a t-shirt that my kids got me for Christmas one year. Okay. It says, "My people skills are just fine. Fine. It's my tolerance for stupidity that needs, it's my tolerance. It's my tolerance to idiots that need work." Okay. This is unfortunately where my mouth gets me in trouble. Because the thing is, you desire this society to stop going down the road it's going down. You've got to stop going down the road you're going down. The odds are you're doing the exact same thing you were doing a while ago. Okay, I know many people are changing, and I can see it. And especially now that I'm starting to cross correlate, the fact that people, like, for instance, in your community there, Malu, the fact that people are starting to talk to each other more and sit down and have a coffee or a beer together where they didn't 2 years ago, says society reached a point where they went, not happy anymore. But here's the funny part about it. There are things that happened 2 years ago on a technically global level, okay, that defy rational explanation. But when you know the reality behind it, which you may never know, it depends on you. When you know the reality behind it, you'll find out that there was a major change that happened a couple of years ago that seems to now be having a very direct impact. Okay. And I'll tell you, when I found out what it was, when I found out what happened, and yes, I do know exactly what happened, and no, I'm not about to tell you. Okay, that is for other people to figure out. But something happened a couple of years ago that actually, in all fairness, it happened about a decade ago. Okay, that the reality of it came out. Where are we? Yeah, we're in. Wait a minute. Nope. We are in 2024, 14. So it'd be, about a decade and a half back is when it occurred. But something happened that changed the path that this world was going to go down. And no, I'm not going to tell you what it was, but I am going to tell you that things are changing now and are going to continue to change. And I will warn you, because there's some of you that go, "Oh, you claim to know, and you're not saying anything because you just want to be in the spotlight." No, I'm not telling you because I just don't feel like being in the spotlight. And I told you I'm not telling you, therefore I'm not. Call it a terminal case of stubborn disposition. But life is changing. Society does have a shot at turning the tide. But people across the globe, okay, have to start realizing, and clearly the message is getting out. Because I don't know, Malu, 2 years ago, I don't think I knew you. Well, I might have. You might have been in the room 2 years ago. Okay, I certainly didn't know where you were from. And I can guarantee I've never physically been to your part of the world. So the fact that I can feel things changing and they're manifesting over in your world, okay, this says the change is happening on a global level. Okay, but it's time for everybody to pull their head out of the sand and go, okay, we're aiming at getting off the planet. Now, here's a real cute question for you. What are you going to do when you get out there? Okay, you desire to get out and get off this planet because it's polluted, it's crowded, there's problems all over the place. The people are bringing the problem. Take the people off the planet, I'll guarantee the problem will go with them. It won't leave here, it'll just extend out there. If you desire the future to be bright, to be interactive, to be prosperous, you've got to start making the changes. Okay, a guarantee. You know, when I went to the Suzazian homeworld, you really had to watch where you were walking. You know, you couldn't rely on them paying attention to it because, let's face it, you're just not going to be seen. And with these guys, them stepping on you, not going to work well. Okay, you'll notice that the smaller animals on Earth get out of the way of the larger ones. Absolutely, Malu. Now, where it comes to the different, what do you got here? Yeah, you got so many planets to deal with. You know, have you started working on them? Okay, that's the real kicker to it. And don't worry, you know, I made the mistake of trying to do too many things all at once. I've now pared things down to make things change in a positive fashion. And again, guys, if you're listening in or if you're in the room and you haven't already subscribed, do give us a thumbs up if you'd be so kind. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights of it. Our time for change, our time for full disclosure is now. It is not to rely on the so-called leaders. There you go, Malu. One step at a time. I've done the same thing. Now, of course, I'm looking at it going, I've died so often, am I going to make the 10-year? Well, one way or the other, I'm going to. You know, the one thing, something that I do like what you put there, LA, absolutely. But one thing I'd like to clarify. The only way that anybody gets the free newsletter is by direct request. The fact that you like and subscribe to the channel will not get you the email, the newsletter, not just in and of itself. However, it is 100% free and will remain that way because it only comes out in email. You know, the nice little part about it, when I take a look at this world, I see, yes, I see a lot of problems, but the problems that I can see, and I'm no researcher. Do your own flaming research. Take a look at the world. Are the people that are in so-called leadership positions, are they doing the things that are beneficial to your community? Are your leaders following the rules that they're laying out, following the laws they're laying out? Or are they looking at their pocketbook going, I've got times what you got for money, so I don't have to pay attention to your law. That doesn't work, because I'll guarantee you'll notice gravity doesn't care who you vote for. The flood, the weather really doesn't check what your bank account looks like, and the fire never asks you whether or not you went to church before it burned your house down. Okay, it just doesn't do it. When you're looking at laws, they must be followed by everybody, those installing the laws as well as the ones that aren't. Okay, just a thought. But again, first and foremost, and you're definitely on the right track there, Malu. Get an idea in your life where you'd like to go, but much more importantly, look at what your life looks like. Are you content with the current layout? Are you happy with the way your world is working? You know, if you're not happy with the way your world is working, absolutely, it's time to start altering it. And, if you've got a question, I keep telling people, if you got questions, absolutely. It came in. If we're looking at, if you're looking at your world and you're going, I'm not happy with the way it is, either ask me here, drop me a line, through any one of the contacts, and below this video, you'll see a whole pile of ways of getting a hold of me. I will do my best to answer. Okay. Or again, you can always book time one-on-one with me. That's the easy part. This part is free. Okay. Positive perceptions will remain free. Okay, as will positive perspectives. But if you've got a question, drop me a line. I'll be more than happy to lay out the ways that I've worked to change my life. Understand, not only was I an extreme recluse for the longest time, okay, leaving the house only in order to generate an income, okay, but I also had a self-esteem that made the most depressed suicidal individual look like an absolute laughing fit. Okay, because I had two emotions. I was either dead calm and reacting to nothing, or I was dead calm and trying to physically kill somebody. But I was always dead calm, so it worked out well. Now, not quite so much. I also don't have the tolerance levels. Ever since I had my stroke, I don't have the same tolerance I used to have. But that's where these books came in. Okay. These little books here that's Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. That tells you literally what I did to take my outlook in life from where it was to where it is today. Okay. And of course, I got 3 in the same series right now. That's Believe in Your Business. Bear in mind, Believe in Your Business applies to running your own house. Okay. And Believe in Your Finances. These are the tools that have kept me alive and are now bringing about prosperity. Prosperity that I am absolutely adamant I am going to find a way to positively affect everybody I come in contact with in one fashion or another. Now, I already know I make everybody I meet, every single person without exception, okay, I make them all happy. Most of them, some I make happy by showing up. Most of them I make happy by leaving. But let's face it, subtlety is not my strongest suit. But where we come to civilization, it boils down to a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch of different outlooks, all living in proximity to each other, and all following stable guidelines that are supposed to apply to everybody. Now think about it. The law in most countries where driving is permitted tells you drive on either on one side of the road or the other. Everybody knows you drive on that side of the road because it cuts down on traffic impediments. Okay, but not everybody drives on the right side of the road. Okay, in Canada we drive on the right side. In the UK and presumably a lot of Europe, you drive on the left. Okay, and I get a kick out of it because if you think about the logistics behind it, when you've got 2 vehicles driving on the right side, Of course, in the ones that they drive on the left, they built the cars the other way around. But if you aren't all driving on the same side of the road, you're going to have a problem. And even the people that are wealthy don't look at it and go, I'm allowed to drive down the left-hand side of the road in a right-hand driven country. They too will follow the rules. Oddly enough, rules are usually followed if they become unpalatable to try and break them. Okay, I'm a firm believer if the law is there, follow the dang thing. Okay, it's just an issue of making things happen. But the real catch to it, and I've had to tell literally community leaders, I've literally had to tell them, look, you desire your world to run a little more smoothly. You've got to take into consideration what you're asking. And are you following the same laws? Now, granted, different laws at different levels of income, not the laws, but the available entertainment is attained by different levels of income. Okay, but if bread is $5 for a loaf of bread, okay, and you've only got $5 and you've only got $2.50, you share with somebody else, put it together, buy a loaf of $5 loaf of bread. If you've got $500, you now with that $5 loaf of bread, the only thing it gives you is the ability to buy 100 loaves. Okay, it is simply an issue of taking one thing that was said in Spider-Man to an all new high. With great power comes great responsibility. If you have the wherewithal to help people around you without hurting yourself, okay, without putting yourself in a dangerous or in a deprived state, absolutely go out of your way to help them. Now, I will warn you, you cannot help people that do not desire help. Okay, you cannot save people from themselves. Well, you can, but it's a little bit harder. It's kind of like I was told you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. I'm telling you, you can force it to drink. You're going to be real wet, real tired by the time you do, but it can be done. Okay, because all you got to do to force a horse to drink is with a bunch of friends, probably. Okay, unless you happen to be Mongo from Blazing Saddles. It's going to take a bunch of you to make the horse fall down so you can hold its head underwater long enough for it to take a breath. Then you let it up. It'll sputter, but it will have had a drink. I will tell you, it will likely try and kick the stuffing out of you afterwards. So I'm recommending you don't do that. Okay, but civilization boils down to treating others the way you desire to be treated. If you're one of these people that appreciates the door being held open for you when you're heading for a mall, okay, absolutely open the door for other people coming. If you come from a society where you appreciate, you come from a violent society where the society, and understand, human society on the whole is not violent by comparison to many races I've seen. Okay. But there are societies where absolutely, violence is a part of their way of life. Okay. And if you desire somebody to step in and protect you when you're in trouble, then absolutely do your best where it's possible to step in and protect others where possible. Okay. Again, it boils down to energy out, energy in. What you put out is what you're stacking the deck in favor of getting. This is just the reality of it. And like I said, family is an issue of who you choose to be around. Okay. That's why I say this stream, for me, is very much along the lines of family. Okay, and I know we've got people sitting in the background that are listening. And again, guys, if you've ever got a question that I haven't touched, absolutely reach out and say something. Okay, I will do my best to get to it. I need this out of the way. Stacking a book back where it belongs. Again, if things are not where they belong, modify that, put it back where it should be. Now, what is this? Tomorrow is... Yeah, tomorrow's Tuesday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Oh, okay. Tomorrow's Tuesday. We are going to go and deal with a very simple little issue. Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I'll tell you, I had fun trying to get the newsletter to you. It didn't want to go. Whoop. Oh, don't worry about the not on topic. That depends entirely on you, Christine. Either ask it here or send it via email. I'll deal with either one. The reality is I'm either going to answer it or I'm telling you I'm not going to answer it. Yeah, tomorrow on Tuesday, we're going to be looking at how to bring your dreams to life. And I don't mean the ones that you're having nightmares about. Okay, I'm talking about the dreams, your goals, the things you'd like to see happen. I'm building the empire. I'm building the newsletter, the magazine. That I desire it to go very, very big. I've had enough of listening to watching so many newscasters come out and go, "We're all going to die." Oh. I've never actually seen the song, but I've never actually heard the song. But and this is probably going to take a little more information because I've never heard the song itself. But if you can tell me, either if the song tells you what they looked like, what their something about what their attitude was, there, because I know of, well, let's face it, you've got the zeta reticulum, the zeta reticulum D, the beta reticulum, the reta reticulum. Okay, there's at least 15 different races of grays that I know of. Okay, each has their own specialty, if you will. Okay, and I have been documenting those in the races of the world. That's one of those things I've been adding. But and this is absolutely the short answer is that kind of question is absolutely welcome here. I just can't give you an answer without without more info. Because I don't even know if the song actually gives enough info to tell you. But quite often you'll find members of each race, of each category on the same ship, depending on the ship they're on. Depending on the ship they were referring to. Quite often, because it depends. If they are talking about a scientific interaction, okay, then you're looking at zetas. If you're talking about the really tall grays, you're talking about the zeta reticulum D. My screen just dumped. So I'm guessing you guys are, oh, there you go, you're back. And again, you see, with the grays, they have a very solidly interactive, interactive society. In their case, if you're born zeta reticulum, you're not going into a profession with the beta reticulums. Not going to happen because you're not even thinking in the same way. Well, we know that puts it into the reticulans and not the reticulin D, because if they were short and communicated with the kids, okay. And I've got to take a look, because you're talking the social ones. And I don't think I've got, well, I know I don't have it readily available. But that sounds like we're talking about the societal guidelines. Okay. Which is a whole other branch of the reticulans. But they are broken, and they have the zeta reticulans, that entire reticulan race or species is broken up very nicely into a concise fashion. But I would be inclined to say they were dealing with, in all likelihood, the social guides, not the scientists. Although there were undoubtedly scientists there. Here we are. Oh, they were short and communicated to the kids about taking care of the planet. Yeah, and absolutely. Okay, that's your zeta reticulans. Okay, talking about taking care of the planet. Those are the scientists themselves, not the ones that are dealing with human society. They're talking about the planet itself. But those are the zeta reticulans. Okay, and absolutely they talk telepathically. Primarily, I mean, they do talk, but they talk in clicks and ticks. Okay, sounds very much like a cross. Well, the zeta reticulans are, by human standard, they're sort of a cross between reptiles and insects. Okay, but they are absolutely fully telepathic. And dealing with the kids with that kind of a line, absolutely that's your zeta reticulans. They're not here to hurt anybody. I mean, some of them absolutely are. But this world, and I remember thinking back, Bud Hopkins had a client that was taken out of a 13th floor window in Manhattan at the same time that the mayor or somebody else or another well-placed individual in New York, I think she was taken out in Manhattan. He was taken out in the Bronx, if I recall correctly. They both met on the ship with the same instruction: take care of the planet. You're screwing it up. Okay. Sadly, it doesn't look like mankind's done much on the plus side on that, but they are working at it. Okay. And clearly things are starting to change. Now, with that in mind, this is why I say they're not here to be a problem. And people that tell me, oh, the Greys are here to conquer the earth. If they wanted to conquer the earth, the place would already be theirs. But with this in mind, where are we? We are sitting there. We are hitting the 2-hour mark here. So I will be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to be looking, this is assuming I make it, we are looking at bringing your dreams into reality and making it happen. Okay, showing you how to make it happen. But it's up to you to do the work. With that in mind, okay, absolutely, Christine, things are finally turning around right. Now, with that in mind, I will be back again tomorrow. But until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.